Hey, AP here once again. Let's go ahead and do one of those interview question. This is what was given to us during the interview panel and asked to solve during the live session. So here we go. Given a string and an int n, return a string made of n repetition of the last n characters of the string. You may assume that n is between 0 and the length of the string inclusive. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I read it a little weird, so let's break it down a little bit. Okay, so usually what I do, I try to understand the question with like some dummy data. Okay, so let's say that the string they gave is hello. Okay, and remember they're also gonna give us an integer, right? So let's say the integer is 2. So in this case, they want us to return a string made of the n repetitions. So the n is 2 here, and repetition of the last n characters of the string. So last n characters of the strings, meaning last two characters, right? Because this is our n. Last two characters of the string. So that means it should be LOLO twice. Why? Because we got the last two characters of the given string, and now it's asking me to return a string that is made out of n repetition, meaning it should repeat twice. So LOLO. So that should be the returned string value. Now we have to understand this. It says that we just assume that the n is between 0 and the length of the string. Okay, all right, let's get to this. So again, I'm gonna open up Eclipse. All right, so here we go. We have this Eclipse. I have a pre-made project here called interview questions, and in the source folder, I am going to go ahead and make a new class. Let's make a package quickly, okay? And let's call it str because we are dealing with a string. And then in this str package, let's go ahead and create a class, right? And we can call it build string because we are building a string, right? And then let's make it a main method. Why? Because I want to test it, right? Even though the idea is to make a method to solve the problem, but we'll have the main method here for testing purposes. So let's clean up the main method. We don't really need this comment here. Now, what they're telling us is they will give us a string. Now, normally what I try to do, right, whenever things is like I'm not really understanding the question fully, right, or I'm having little difficulty getting to my actual logic, I just try doing things in the main method, okay? So here, let's do this. They will give us a string. Let's pretend the string is str variable, and let's say it is hello, okay? Now, let's go ahead and create an integer n, and let's give that 2, just like we talked about earlier, right? Now, we have to get this last two character, right? So how do I get a portion of a given string? We learned, right, substring. So we'll use the substring here. So we can say str.substring, right? And then here we have these two methods. We are going to go use the second option here. Why? Because I'm gonna tell you where to start, right, and where to go until. So if you remember, I have to go until the length of the string, right? So str.length, meaning all the way to the end, right? And then I have to do str.length for the first index value, right? And it needs to be -2, okay? -2. Now I want to see what that prints, okay? I just want to see what that prints. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little system out here, okay? And in there I'm gonna put that one line of code that I just worked on, and let me see what does it execute, okay? And as you can see, it executed LO. So that means it was able to retrieve the last two characters. I'm just gonna change this out to another value, like let's say tomorrow, right? And then I'm gonna see if I get O and W. I do. So now let's say that if I do 3, I am expecting grow, right? Because ROW, right? So let's go ahead and try that. And hold on, let's run it one more time. So I'm still getting OW, right? Now why? Because if you remember, we kind of hard coded that too, right? So we have to swap that out with our variable. So now let's check it out, see if we get, all right, good. Now if we do, let's say 4, right, we'll get RROW. Check this out. All right, great. So this piece of code that we put in the sysl is actually working, right? Is getting the repeated the substring we want, right? So maybe we can create another sub str, right? That the value that we want, right? The value, a portion value that we want. Now we have to repeat it, right? Like for example, if we go back to you know, our original 2, and if this was hello, right? So remember, it would say LO LO. All right, so now what we are gonna do, in order to repeat it a couple of times, because we don't know how many times, we have to kind of do this in a loop, right? So we are gonna say for, here is the quick formation of the loop, right? So here we go, and then I usually just divide it into like this, and then I start filling it out. So let's say that my first repetition is always going to be at 0, okay? So and then I would be my less than the n, right? Like how many times I want to repeat. Why less than, why not less than and equal to? Because I started at 0, right? So now it's less than n. Now it's gonna be I plus plus, because you know it tells me it increments 1 by 1. So now what I need to do, I need to kind of add these two values together, like two values meaning like same value with itself, right? So usually what I do when I have to kind of add something to a string, I follow this formula where I go before the for loop and create a variable, we can call it a result, right? And let it be equal to nothing, right? Like an empty string. Okay, that's what I meant, empty string. And then inside the loop, I'm going to say, hey, result, you are going to be equal to, okay, the value of result plus sub str. Why? Because as I am looping, I want the result to be updated by concatenating the value of result currently and the value of sub str. Meaning for the very first time, like for the for loop, when the I is 0, for the very first time when I is 0, my result is equal to empty. So that means empty is concatenating with the value of sub str, which is LO in this particular case. Why? Because it's 2. So you got empty and LO, right? Now remember, our n is less than 2, so that means for loop is going to go one more time, so I will become 1, right? Now when I becomes 1, the result value is no longer empty because it got updated in the previous step. It got updated to LO, right? So now your result is LO and your sub str is also LO. So if you put them together, you now got LO and LO, right? Now your I value is gonna get incremented to 2, right? Because I plus plus. But when it increments to 2, well, you remember you said your I always has to be less than n, right? But in this case, it's no longer less than n because I is now 2 and n is also 2. So 2 is not less than 2. So that means the situation has become false. You're out of the for loop. Now that you're out of the for loop, if you do a sys out, okay, and you print out the value of result, you should be able to get your LO and LO. Check that out. There we go. Now we can change this around a little bit, right? We can say, let's say we have Tom, okay, and I want to change this to 3, right? Now I should see Tom, right? I should see that, right? There we go. If we go back to tomorrow, right, and I still have 3, then I should see ROW, row, right, 3 times. Let's take a look at that. All right, it's working, great. Now I'm going to take this and make the method they wanted me to make. So again, I can go ahead and create public, right, void build repeated, maybe build repeated string, right? And then if you remember, whoever is going to use this method, they're the one who's going to give me the string, they're the one who's going to give me the n, right? So now I don't need to, you know, take this into this method. Why? Because these will be provided by whoever is going to use it. So I can actually take these off, and every other code that I wrote in the main method, I can actually just cut it and paste it within here. Okay, and remember, right now I have it as a void, but they want a string back. So instead of void, I'm going to put back a string, and here I'm going to say return. Okay, not and return result, not say so, because they want a value returned, right? Not print something out. So now all we have to do to test this out, right? We can actually say, hey, let's go ahead and do call this, you know, let's test it out. So let's call this method. So we're going to say build string, right, equal to new build string, because we got to make that object, right? And then using the build string object, we can call, okay? And now here we go. So my string value could be hello, right? And this could be 2. And this should produce LOLO, just like we saw earlier, right? Now to see this in action, obviously this has to go inside a sysout, right? So that we can actually see it being printed out, right? So let's do that. Here we go. If we now run this, we should see LOLO. Great. Here we go. So they actually told us that we can assume the n value is always going to be greater than 0, or it would be less than the length, right? Now, what if it's not? Like, what if I give you -2? Then what, right? You can see we got an exception, right? What if I gave you like 10 here, when hello is only how many characters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters, right? Like in this kind of situation, what do we do, right? So if you wanted to take care of this, we actually have to take this and put it into an if condition, meaning we have to say if n, right, has to be greater than 0, right, and n has to be I guess less than, right, less than str dot n is less than the length, right? Now I want you to understand that you know, they wanted inclusive, so it has to be less than and equal to dot length, okay? And the reason it's failing, if you take a look, is giving you an error, because they're saying, well, if this situation is true, then I'm returning something. What if it is not true? Then what do I do, right? So in that case, what am I returning, right? So here, I guess I can just throw an error, right? Or I can say, you know, I could just give you the same string back, okay? Or I can just give you a string where it says invalid argument, right? I can do a bunch of things. Now it just makes sense to just throw an error, right? So I can say throw new, and then so we can actually just copy this exception right here, paste it right here, we go. So we can just throw this. Now we can actually write a sysout here as well. So we can say n value needs to be between 0 and the length of the given string. Okay, now we did this because I know they told us we can assume, but we didn't want to leave it up to the user. We want to take care of it, right? Now here, let's try this, right? I just cleaned up some empty spaces. Here we go. Let's try this. Now hello, I gave 10, right? So in a particular scenario like that, it should give me that else scenario, right? Look, it's telling me. Now if I give you hello and I give you 5, it should work now, okay? It should repeat hello 5 times. Look at that, it's working. And what about if it's -1? Again, I should get that error now, right? And value needs to be between this, and it's gonna throw that error because I told it to throw it. Okay, hope that makes sense, and I hope like you got the idea what they wanted in the interview. And sometimes, because it's a time constraint, you don't have to go to that if analysis statement. Okay, now, because you can just solve it the way we did it earlier without the if and else statement, meaning just this portion, right? And wait for them to ask you a follow-up question, or you can let them know by making a statement. I made this method, I'm assuming the user understood what parameter they have to give. If I have to take care of it, then I would have to use an if and else condition to kind of ensure the parameters are correct. And you can kind of talk about this logic, because you may not have enough time to write the code out, right? So anyway, so that's all I got for this interview questions. Hope that helped, and hope it kind of helped you to review some of the older concept as well. I am one of the instructor at TechFiles. To learn more about the courses we offer, visit techfiles.com.